In this module, you'll learn how to apply visual appearances, define render settings, and submit a render to the cloud. Creating realistic product renderings takes place in the Render workspace. We'll select the Workspace's dropdown, followed by selecting Render. To prepare for a render, we'll start by adding appearances. Appearances are visual colors and representations of materials. They do not affect the physical properties of your model. In the Appearance dialog, we can see that the Library section houses categories of appearances. We can also search for specific appearances. For example, I'll search for wood appearances. Notice how this narrows it down to all available wood appearances. Select materials come pre-installed with Fusion 360. However, it's necessary to download each material for the first use. We can pick out a wood material that we like for the handle and knob of a tea kettle design, and click the download button if needed. To apply materials, we can drag and drop them directly on top of the desired part in the canvas. We can also drag and drop appearances to the bodies in the Fusion 360 browser, which is often easier when working on large assemblies. I'll drag the 3D cherry semi-gloss wood appearance to both the knob and handle. For the body and lid, I'd like to use a satin stainless steel. I'll drag this to the lid first, followed by the body of the tea kettle. Notice with the tea kettle body, we get a warning message that child components have assigned appearances. We're not able to change the appearance of the tea kettle body because it's an external component. However, if we switch to the design workspace, we can use Edit in Place to edit the details of external components within the context of our assembly file. Edit in Place includes the ability to change its appearance in the current file without opening the individual design file. You will find the same appearance feature is also available in the design workspace, allowing you to apply appearances as you model. After dragging the same satin stainless steel over, I'll head back to the Render workspace. Once we've applied the appropriate materials, we'll want to set up the scene settings. Scene settings include the environment and lighting for the scene of only our render. Scene settings do not affect the design or other workspaces. For starters, you can change the background to a solid color or an environment, which are 3D backgrounds. I'll change the color to white. However, I'll leave it slightly off-white so it's more realistic. Notice there are many additional settings to fine-tune, including whether or not you have a ground shadow, camera type, and more. Before tweaking those settings, I recommend applying an environment that will change the lighting. Lighting is the key to creating a photorealistic rendering. Consider what environment your product would live in and what type of lighting the real-world environment would have. Fusion 360 offers a handful of environments to use. You can also upload and apply a custom environment. Drag and drop an environment onto the canvas and watch how it impacts the lighting of the render. I'll go with the photo booth option as I'd like to recreate a product photo that represents a promotional image for this tea kettle. After lighting, the composition and perspective of your product are the second most important options. Consider which angle provides the most context, showcases the most detail, and which angle is most realistic. For example, a tea kettle often sits on a table, stove, or countertop. Looking down at the tea kettle will look and feel better than looking from a bottom perspective. Once we define our materials, lighting, and composition, we can use the in-canvas render feature to test the render. In-canvas render will simulate the realistic lighting effects and give us a preview of our final render. In-canvas will use the local computer, so we may need to let it sit for a few seconds to achieve the desired quality level. Note that you can pause this at any time. Viewing the in-canvas render will give us a better sense of the types of settings we can improve, or whether or not we need to use a different environment. We can make changes while in-canvas is running, or select the feature again to stop the in-canvas render. Using the Capture Image tool, we can save an image at any time throughout the render process. This is helpful if we need a screenshot to share with teammates or another workflow. Metals can be a challenge to photograph or render. I'll try switching the environment to the cool light environment. In the Settings tab, you can also turn the depth of field on. Once checked, select a point on the model to set the depth of field. I'll click to set the point near the lid, which will help it become the center of focus. This means the other areas of the design will start to get out of focus. We can also adjust the blur slider to change how the focus is applied. Note that this setting is only in effect when ray tracing with the in-canvas render tool or our final render. We won't see any changes while previewing our setup. To generate a final rendering, we'll select the Render button in the toolbar. Fusion 360 offers the use of cloud rendering and local rendering. Cloud rendering lets you configure your rendering settings, then send it to process in the cloud so you don't sacrifice any memory or performance on your local computer while the render is generating. Local rendering will let you configure your rendering settings and perform the rendering on your local computer. Let's define the desired aspect ratio and render quality, then select the Render button. Render will submit the rendering to the queue, and a thumbnail will appear below in the render gallery. Note that cloud rendering does require the use of cloud credits, while local rendering does not. For education accounts, students are given cloud credits to render in the cloud. The time your render takes will depend on the queue and the quality of the render. After the render is complete, the thumbnail will display a preview of the final render. Selecting the thumbnail gives us the option to download, delete, or share the product rendering. We can also rotate the view or generate a new render. You've now learned how to create a realistic product rendering in Fusion 360's Render workspace. Renderings are a great way to communicate design decisions with stakeholders or to use with promotional material.